This format has so many powerful decks to choose from, and Rescue Ace is no exception. So if you're trying to play the deck now or just getting prepared for Age of Overlord, this really feels like the best time to start playing this deck. What's up guys, and welcome back to another episode of Cards and Coffee. Today we're going to be going over my current format Rescue Ace deck. We're going to go through the card by card and I'll show you guys exactly what I'm playing and why I'm playing it. But at the end I'm also going to show some of the basic combos this deck can do. And of course, before we dive into all that, make sure you grab yourself a cup of coffee or something. That way you guys can sit down and tune in. Alright, so I've been having so much fun playing this Rescue Ace deck. As mentioned, this deck will change with Age of Overlord, and there will be another video showcasing that as well. But even now, without those cards, this deck feels really solid into today's format. So hopping right into it, for the first monster we're playing is 3 copies of Rescue Ace Hydrant. Once per turn, it can add a Rescue Ace monster, but if you have another ace on the field, it also can't be targeted by attacks or effects. Also, it'll let you use those quick plays and traps you set off your Turbulence first turn, while also giving those cards additional effects while it's on the field. So it's pretty dang important. But then after that, of course, we're playing 3 copies of Rescue Ace Airlifter. This is the main 1-card combo of your deck. On normal or special, it searches a Rescue Ace spell card, which is really important for most of your combos. Also, a lot of people forget it has the quick effect when your opponent uses a monster effect on the field. It can tribute itself from the field or hand to special an ace from your hand. This is a cool way to play around interruptions while also being able to help you get cards out of your hand that you might not have been able to summon. The effect doesn't always come up, but it's very nice. But the one that does it best is 3 copies of Rescue Ace Impulse. Again, just like Airlifter, you contribute this from hand or field to special summon a Rescue Ace monster when your opponent uses a monster effect on the field. This one's really nice though because it brings it out from deck so you don't waste resources, but it does have to be a machine, so keep that in mind. A lot of people debate on whether or not you should play 1 of this or 3 because it does play into the talents cards, but personally for me, I just feel like this deck isn't the most consistent, so right now you need as much starters as possible, even though you're kind of relying on your opponent on playing to be able to use this card. Another thing to note though is you can actually use this offensively as well, playing into a board that your opponent might have monster effects to use. So rather than using it as a hand trap and then playing into those talents cards, then you can just use it on your turn to help flood the field if your opponent's trying to stop you. Also, another perk to this card is it helps you deal with Noir. While it's on the field, you can choose an effect monster your opponent controls with the highest attack. Then for the rest of the turn, neither player can activate that monster's effect, so it's pretty dang good because it affects the players, not the Noir. So if your opponent has Noir and you just summon this to the field, 9 times out of 10 they're just going to spin it back right away. That way you can't declare its effect. It's actually really cool because once they try to spin it back with Noir, you can chain its secondary effect, tributing it off to summon another machine from the deck. If they don't spin it back, then I guess they're just taking the gamble on whether or not you play Goddess in your extra deck, but just know that Towers is still something you'll have to deal with if they do let it resolve. But then for the main monster that we're summoning off the Impulse as a hand trap, it is the 1 copy of Rescue Ace Fire Engine. The main purpose of this card is if your opponent special summons a monster, then you can special summon a Rescue Ace that's level 4 or lower from your hand, deck, or graveyard. I guess a simple interaction would be your opponent normal summons Tour Guide and activates the effect. You can chain Impulse and then you summon the Fire Engine from deck, then Tour Guide resolves and it summons the Rhino from deck. Now in a new chain, the Fire Engine will activate and now you can summon Airlifter, or you can even summon yourself the Hydrant. Either one is fine. 9 times out of 10 I do go with the Airlifter, that way I can get the emergency for my starting turn. Oh, and Fire Engine also has another effect that when you summon a Rescue Ace to the field, you can just summon it for free from your hand, so that's pretty dang good as far as extenders go. But one of the best extenders in this deck is Rescue Ace Preventer, a card you could argue running 3 because it's so good, but it is a little cloggy and we can search it out fairly easily. All you have to do is banish a Rescue Ace card from your grave to summon it to the field, but then it has the effect of when it's sent to the grave, you can summon a banished Rescue Ace monster, which is really insane. It can't be a level 8, so you're not looping preventers, but it's really great at spamming the field and setting up so many of your first turn combos. Also, it has an amazing on-field effect where if you have another Rescue Ace monster, you can quick effect Book of Moon a monster, so it sets up great interruptions as well. But then for the final Rescue Ace monster, we're playing 2 copies of Turbulence. I think 2 is the best number. You have to banish 2 Rescue Ace cards to summon it, but you have a bunch of other ways to get access to this card. But the main thing you're trying to use this for, obviously, is to set 4 of your spells and traps from the deck, setting up your first turn combo, and it easily plays under something like Nibiru. Oh, and there's also the effect that if one of your cards leaves the field because of your opponent's card effect, you can also just destroy one of their cards as well, which is pretty annoying. And this isn't a Rescue Ace monster, but it goes with the theme. We're playing 1 Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. This is obviously for our Puzzle-Amino combo, and there's a bunch of different lines you can do in regards to that card, but at the end of the day, I feel the Ibli lock is just the best combo to do. The fact that this also helps you play around Lightning Storm and Evenly Match is really important for this deck, so if you just happen to get a free win because they can't special summon, then that's awesome, but the fact that you also play around the 2 strongest cards against your deck in the process is a win in my book regardless. Again, make sure you stick around to the end of the video, not only to see that combo, but I have a couple others I'll show you as well. But then for our Rescue Ace spells, we have the 1 HQ, searchable off of our Airlifter, which is really important for the grind game, being able to recycle all your names. Also, it's an additional normal summon, which is great for playing into boards, so I really love this card. But for one of the best cards in this deck, 3 Emergency, basically an emergency teleport, but then you tribute 1 from the field or your hand. It's really amazing at dodging hand traps as well. Then, of course, we play the 1 Alert and the 1 Rescue Alert, being able to add 1 from grave or deck if you have the Hydrant on field. And then Rescue is a monster reborn, but again, if you have Hydrant, you can actually reborn 1 from your opponent's grave, which is a great interruption in a lot of scenarios. And then I'm only opting to run 2 traps, the Extinguish and the Contain. Reinforce is a really good card, but I don't think it's needed. There are some scenarios that it's really good, but these 2 traps are really insane. Being able to pop a monster, and then of course if you have Hydrant, it can't use its effects. And then having the Imperm that when paired with Hydrant also prevents them from using it for Link summons, Synchro summons, Exceeds. Basically using it for the extra deck, it's really great at locking them out of the game. Both of these paired alongside the Ibli is very annoying for your opponent to have to play through. And again, while you could play the other trap, I just feel like these are just the go-to options right now. But that's it for our Rescue Ace cards. Now moving on to some of our supporting consistency cards. The first one is Pot of Prosperity, which of course we're maxing out on. This card is so insane, and this deck does struggle with consistency, so seeing the top 6 is very important. Also, we have Rhoda, which searches our 1-card combo of Airlifter, but it also grabs Impulse if you already have access to it. And then we're also running 1 for 1. Again, just a great way to start your turn, getting your Hydrant on the field and start comboing off. Normally, Hydrant by itself isn't full combo, but 1 for 1 is because it doesn't use your normal summon. You could also be running something like Small World in the deck, which is definitely a solid option, but I hate going -1 just to search something like Airlifter, but test it out yourself. Now let's move on to some of the tech options I'm playing. I'm actually going with a bunch of hand traps. You could be running something like Fenrir, but there are some conflictions with it in the deck, so instead I'm opting to run 3 Ash, 3 Crow, 3 Nibiru, and 3 Infinite Impermanence. Again, you don't have to go the hand trap route. You could even be playing stuff like Talents to help you break boards, or continue playing if you did get hit with hand traps. But regardless of what approach you decide to take, I definitely think Ash Blossom has to 100% be in this deck. Not only can we recycle it with our Salaman Great Wolf, but this deck can play into the Talents cards pretty easily, especially because we're playing 3 Impulse. So having something like Ash to stop Thrust is very important. But personally, I find when you pair it alongside other hand traps, it shines even more. A card that I've really been enjoying is the DD Crows. It's so good into so many matchups, except for, I guess, Fluanderies, even though I guess technically it can stop something like Stree from resolving. But Crow is so good against Tearlament. It hits Shyama in the Unchained matchup, but also it's good against stuff like Dragon Link, Despia. It is so insane against Pearly. I think this is one of the most versatile hand traps right now, even though something like Druce Worm is technically more high impact. But that's it for the deck, a solid 40 cards, and while you could add Fenrir, I just find there's quite a few conflictions with the deck, not only because Impulse summons monsters, but also Nibiru can summon itself, so there's that as well. Moving on to the extra deck, for the Link ones, we have 1 Linkuriboh alongside 1 Almirage. Linkuriboh is obviously staple, but Almirage is really just there for our 1-card Hydrant combo that sets up Heat Soul. Again, I'll show you that at the end of the video, so make sure you stick around. But then after that, we have the 1 Puzzle-Amino, of course, setting up our Ibli lock, and also getting us access to Dweller against something like Tearlament or even Unchained. When we do the Ibli lock, of course, we're gonna beat cop them as well, just being as degenerate as possible, and it's so good in this format. Then for some of the generic stuff, we have an IP Masquerena, a Nightmare Phoenix, and we're playing the Fire Charmer as well. I'd love to fit Dark, but right now I'm just playing Masquerena. I think it's a really really good interruption as well. Then for our last Link 2, we have the Sunlight Wolf. Like I mentioned, you can recycle Ash Blossom, but your whole deck is fire, so this card is really great for the deck. But we do play another Salamangreat. We do play the Heat Leo as well. I think having Spell and Trap removal in a Link 3 is very great. You could play something like Topologic Tresbania because it can wipe all the spells and traps on the field. But either way, whichever one you decide to play, they're both generically good. But then after that, we have the one Heat Soul, like I said, just for the Hydrant combo, but there are other combo lines you could set it up alongside your full board. Also, we have the one Nightmare Unicorn, and again, something you tag into with Masquerena, but when going into a board, it's great removal. Of course, we have the OTK button, access code Talker. You definitely need a way to kill in this deck because you can't always summon multiple Turbulences on the field. And as mentioned, we are playing Underworld Goddess. I wound up cutting Relinquish Anima for this card just because I didn't want to take the gamble that if I use Impulse on-field effect against Noir, sometimes the Pearly player will just let it resolve and put you on better habit. So for that reason, I felt like I just had to play it in the extra. And then for the last two cards are Exceeds, the Gigantic Sprite, and the Abyss Dweller, again alongside the Puzzlemino combo. But again, we'll go over that in a sec, but that's it for the extra deck. So let's do some combos. All right, so today I'm going to show you a couple of one-card combos, and then I'm going to show you the Abyss Dweller combo at the end as well. Our first combo is just going to be if you only open Hydrant. This doesn't get you access to all your spells and traps, but it gets you follow-up plus draws off of Heat Leo, so there's a chance you can draw into hand traps, even though I guess in this example I've given you a bunch of hand traps already. But obviously this is pretty straightforward. You're going to normal summon Hydrant and of course use the effect to search. Preventer is the go-to card here, and then you'll immediately link this off and go into your Almirage. The fire is really important, but now we can special summon Preventer by banishing our Hydrant. Then of course now we can link 2 using 2 fires to go into our Sunlight Wolf. Now that Preventer will activate and you can special summon Hydrant to the field. One option is you could special summon this right to the zone and add the Preventer and use it next turn. But personally for me, I like summoning it off to the side because then now we can link this off and go into Linkuriboh. That will trigger the Wolf and then add the Hydrant for next turn. The reason I like doing this over Preventer is because now next turn this is 2 of your Rescue Ace cards, so now you can go into your Turbulence, but again, you can test that out yourself. But now we can link these off. We have 2 Cyberus monsters that are different attributes, so we can go into Heat Leo. We can pay 1,000 to draw another card, and then of course on our opponent's turn we can pay 1,000 and of course, well, draw again. Again, it's nothing too fancy, but at least it's a good first turn combo if Hydrant's the only card you draw. But next, let's go over the bread and butter play, our 1-card combo with Rescue Ace Airlifter. So again, obviously starting things off, we're going to go ahead and normal summon Rescue Ace Airlifter and use the effect to search a spell. In this case, we're going to grab Emergency, and then after that, we can go ahead and fire this off and special summon from deck. This is where we'll summon Hydrant, and then of course the Airlifter goes to grave. Then after that, this is where we'll use Hydrant to go ahead and grab our boss monster. We'll add Turbulence to hand. Now we have 2 ace cards in the grave, so we can activate Turbulence, banishing these 2 and summoning it to the field. Now we get all that free advantage. We'll go ahead and use Turbulence effect to set 4. You'll always set the 2 traps unless of course you open one, but then you have the option of Alert, Rescue, or Emergency. For this combo, you're always going to set Alert because you're going to go ahead and use it to search Preventer, but when it comes to Rescue or Emergency, it's really personal preference. Rescue acts like Shark Cannon with Hydrant on the field, so it's a great interruption, but Emergency just enables more follow-up for the next turn. So again, it's up to you, but in this case, I'm going to set Emergency, and then of course, with these being face down, now that I have my Hydrant on the field, I can activate Alert to search. As mentioned, this is where we'll add the Preventer, and then after that, you can go ahead and special summon it straight to the field by banishing the Alert. Now after that, you can link these 2 off, and then of course go into your Puzzlemino, and then in a new chain, now we can activate Preventer, and we can target that Airlifter we banished to special summon it to the field. Now that we've special summoned to the Puzzlemino zone, we can use its effect to change Airlifter to level 2. Then after that, we can perform an Exceed summon, go into Gigantic Sprite, and then activate the effect. That brings out Ibly, and now we have 2 darks that we can link off and go straight into Beat Cop. Now that Ibly will activate, you give it to your opponent, and then you can use the Beat Cop and put the counter on the Ibly. Again, if you had more engine, you could probably go even further, but this is what you do at a bare minimum. Again, the second they summon another monster onto the field, you can either pop it or negate its effects and then lock them out of being able to use it for a link summon. So no matter which one you use, it prevents them from linking off the Ibly unless they already have a Linkuriboh in their extra deck. And then for our last combo, it's going to be the Abyss Dweller line. There's a few ways you can accomplish it, but the easiest way is Airlifter plus another Rescue Ace monster. monster. There's a few other combinations that can get you there as well, but to just show you the straightforward line, you're gonna normal summon the airlifter like last time and use its effect to search. This is pretty straightforward. Again, you're gonna add the emergency and then activate it to special from deck. Once again, the hydrant will hit the field, but then now instead of sending the airlifter from field to grave, you're gonna send the impulse from hand. Again, this could be any rescue ace, but then after that, now we can use the hydrant and add ourselves the turbulence. Now, just like last time, we have 2 rescue aces, so we can banish them both and summon the turbulence. Once again, we'll use the effect, and now we can set 4. Again, you're gonna set the 2 traps and alert, and the last one's up to you, but in this case, I guess I'll just set emergency. Then after that, we have the hydrant, so we can activate this alert and go and search that preventer again. This will get added to hand, and just like last time, you can banish this to special summon it to the field. I guess the only important thing to note is you want to make sure you leave at least one of these zones empty. That way you can summon something to Puzzlemino to change its level. I forgot to mention that in the last combo. But again, just like last time, we'll link these 2 off. We'll go into Puzzlemino. Preventer will activate. We summon the rescue ace monster we discarded. Now Puzzlemino will activate. We can now change this to level 4, and since we left airlifter on the field, now we can exceed these into our one and only Abyss Dweller. Again, it's a 2-card combo, so it's not as easy as our 1-card combo to do, but this is so powerful in so many matchups, and that's why I think you have to play it. One downside is this doesn't play around evenly or lightning storm, but being able to turn skip against certain matchups is definitely very important. This deck has so many different combos it can do, and it's really just player preference when it comes to what tech options you want to play. But one thing I do know is post Age of Overlord, this deck is going to change even further, and I can't wait to showcase that in another video. But that's going to wrap things up for today's video. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and I really appreciate all the support. If you're looking to help the channel out, make sure you check out my sponsors' links down below. If you use my affiliate link with Dragon Shield, a portion of the purchase comes back to the channel. And of course, if you shop at Smart TCG and Next Level Anime, use my code Cards&CoffeeTCG. That way you save 10% at checkout, and a portion of that profit comes back to the channel, helping me make content for you. But once again, thanks for tuning in, and here's hoping to see you guys on the next one. Peace.